This last little part of your notes, points to ponder, I want you to try this pretty much on your own. I'm going to kind of get you started here, but then I want you to kind of fill this out as a talking point for next class. And so this is part of your homework to have this filled out, even though I'm not necessarily going to fill in a bunch right now for you to copy down. I want you to actually kind of come up with some things on your own. How do we choose to put numbers in the table of values? Well, we always use -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2, unless there was a fraction. Then we use multiples of the denominator so we could get rid of the fractions. So we're going to compare the lines that we graph from each equation to the original graph, which was y equals 2x. So the original graph on the front side, we graphed the equation y equals 2x. And we're going to compare this graph to each of the graphs on the inside. And so the first one asks, how is this graph similar to the original graph? Why do you say that? And then it asks, how is it different from the original graph, and why? So for example 2, we graphed 2x minus 6 right here. And what I want to know is how is this line the same or similar to this one? And if we look at this line and this line, they look like they have very similar slopes. And when I say slope, I mean like the steepness of the graph. They look like they have the same steepness, which another word for steep is the slope. Why, I'm not really sure, and we can talk about that more in class. How is it different? Well, it crosses the y-axis. Remember that if you were to make your body a y like the YMCA and collapse it, it becomes a straight up and down line. This line crosses the x-axis or the y-axis at -6, and it crosses this y-axis at 0, 0, 0. So where it crosses the x and y-axis, both axes actually, is different. And so it's different in terms of where it crosses the x and y axis. Why? Well, you might have to look further into the equations. So if we look at the equations, this one crosses the x and y axis differently because of this -6. Because once we multiplied, we had to subtract 6, our lines, all of our points shifted down 6 from the original points that we were given where it crossed through the origin. And so y is actually because of the -6. So why do we think that the steepness is the same? Why every time we went up 2 did we go over 1? What's the same about those equations, 2x and 2x minus 6? I'm going to take a guess and guess that it's because of the 2x, the 2 in front of the x, the coefficient. So what I want you to do now is I want you to think about what's the same about this graph and the original graph. Why do you think that is? Fill that in right here. How is this graph from example 3 different from the graph in example 1? And why do you think that is? Put that in this box here. How is this graph similar to this graph on the front? Tell me, how is it the same? And why do you think that might be? And then how is this graph different from the graph on the front? And do you have a guess as to why that is? So I'm not looking for correctness here, but I am looking for thoughtfulness. And did you think about these answers, and did you try to fill something in to share with us how those graphs are similar and different? And we're going to finish these table talk discussions and this points to ponder in class together to really get down to why these things happen the way that they're happening here.